Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. You're listening to a new episode of Off the Record, a student abroad podcast, where your host, Saman Fatima, will cover the lengths of what it means to be a student and faculty. Saman and her guests will explore how, why, and what students, especially international students, face when they move abroad to complete their undergrad, master's, or PhD. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Off the Record with me, Saman, on ITSP Magazine. And we're here with another episode where we have a guest here who would be talking about his student life, being an international student, and how he coupled up everything together. There is an interesting section here where you would get some tips if he does allow it, and talk about a couple of pointers on entrepreneurship, because he has done that along with being a student. So let's see how the hour goes with our talking. So Gaurav, welcome to ITSP Magazine, and we're so glad that you took out time to talk about your life journey while doing your master's at Syracuse University. And we want you to introduce yourself, where you're from, what course you did, where you're working right now because you've graduated, and over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Saman, for having me here. I'm excited to be here and answer questions and help the greater audience. Um, I think this is a great medium and great podcast to like all students to look out for, and puts them really into the perspective of what to expect from a international student being at a different country and everything. All right. So my name is Gaurav Sarraf. I'm from Bangalore, India. I did my undergrad in computer science and with a specialization in cybersecurity. And I did my master's in cybersecurity at Syracuse University. I just graduated in December of 2023. I got here in spring of 2022. And currently I'm working as a software security engineer at Lumen Technologies.
That's like a big connection from Bangalore to US, and that too while we were just talking about being on this podcast, we discussed about how the winters are brutal there, and considering the heat wave as well that we talked about. So how come, like, we know that there are a lot of cybersecurity colleges that specializes in that degree, or a total master's degree into information security. What was your factors that led you to choose this college? What really stood out for you as compared to a lot of options you would have, and you went ahead with this university?
Right. So first to the question on the weather. So Syracuse is an interesting location. It has the name of the snowiest or the heaviest snow city in the US. But we were lucky, like our batch was lucky. It hasn't been snowing that much in the past couple of years. But the winters are really getting brutal for upstate New York. Right now, as we speak, it's about 96, and which is like really, topping the charts for us. But to answer your question about cybersecurity universities, yes, there are a lot in the US, but the number has increased significantly recently, but it hasn't been so in the past. A point which stood up for me for Syracuse University was that Syracuse University has been having the cybersecurity program for about more than a decade now. And what really caught my eye was the subjects they offer and the research opportunities which the university provided to all their students. So in addition to the cybersecurity program, they also have like a master's and thesis program, which I did not take advantage of, but I know a few folks did, and they loved it. Or many universities do not provide the option of doing a thesis, so that's really good to have. In addition to that, like I mentioned, the research. The professors here have actually done like wonderful and groundbreaking research, which has been really been helpful to the industry and just the community in general in terms of cybersecurity. So you have the option of actually working with these professors, getting involved in their open source contributions and everything, which was wonderful. And there's also a great emphasis by the university itself in terms of like funding for clubs and funding for like hackathons and everything, which is really helpful and something which all cybersecurity students should have. So also, which was interesting for me was the subjects which they offered. Syracuse University was one of the only few universities which had like a different specialization for computer security and a different specialization for internet security. In addition to that, they also had like really good, optional subjects which were not offered by other universities. They were interests to me, especially like machine learning and security and IoT security, which was really really cutting edge in my opinion. I also have experience with machine learning and IoT in my past working, so it was the best option for me.
And while we're just talking about like these are really tomorrow technologies which the university was providing as subjects, and that's really good, that's prepping you once you're out and graduated. It's good that you do have those knowledge. But circling back, when you were applying for the university, and what was the application process that was followed? I know it may have changed after your batch, but what all things did you submit in terms of, like, I know there would have been an SOP, but anything else that needed, like LORs or test scores or any essay interviews or anything of that sort?
I think Syracuse University is pretty standard in that sense. They had a requirement of an SOP, 3 LORs, and test scores. There's one exception that Syracuse University actually does not require GRE. And I did not know that while I was applying. I still applied with my GRE and my TOEFL scores, but they accept TOEFL as well as IELTS. So if that's a concern for some people, they accept both. In addition to that, before you actually get your I-20, they want your scores, your undergrad scores, which is important to them. And once you're done with the basic requirements and you get an approval or you get accepted into the university, they just send you an I-20 and then you send in the deposit, you hold in your seat, and that's it. Many universities have a requirement of actually paying in fees as soon as you land, but your Syracuse University is a little bit more flexible in that sense. They give you some time, about a month or two, to actually put in all of your original documents as well as put in the fees and everything, which is quite nice, I feel.
It's actually really nice because the day I landed here in Atlanta, the very next day, I was just running around the university to actually submit a couple of my original documentation, and then I got my ID card. And way before I flew, to the location, I had to submit the fees as well, like the first installment. Rather, the fact, like, if in the 10 days course I switch the I-20, I
Mhm.
moved to somewhere else, but still my fees is gone, it's done and dusted. So I anyways have to fly and join the same university. So that kind of flexibility is good, that as you mentioned, you do have time to submit your
That's right.
documentation, and that's good because it takes a while to actually settle up and whatnot that goes after that. But um basically, I also wanted to touch base on the pointers where when you apply, when you get that offer letter, like we touched on the I-20 portion as well. But I just wanted to understand if the university has some sort of scholarship tagged under, maybe just to international students, or there are specific programs that you apply for and from there you get shortlisted. We just wanted to understand what kind of financial aid does international students get being part of that university once you have that offer letter?
Right. That's a great question. Syracuse University is actually, again, very, very nice and very flexible in that sense. They do not have anything specifically for international students, but they have a good chunk of scholarship aid available for all graduate students. More so for the engineering school than the information sciences school. One of the most popular programs in Syracuse University is information sciences, and I do not think they have a scholarship option. I may be wrong, but none of my friends did, so I'm assuming they do not have any scholarship options. But Syracuse, the engineering school definitely does, and I had a scholarship of 30% coming right after my acceptance. But I hear the scholarship plus aid goes up to quite a high number, even more than 30% for a few cases, and it's completely merit based. There's no first come first serve basis or anything like that. If you are qualified, you will get the scholarship, and not just that, but they also offer you RA and TA positions if you're qualified, even before you actually start your school. So, adding all of that up, it adds up to quite a bit, and it really helps in managing your finances for your master's program. One important thing to note is Syracuse University is actually one of the expensive schools compared to other universities. So that's something which everyone needs to keep in mind before getting to the US. But on the other hand, Syracuse itself, the city itself, is not that expensive, so it balances out. But that's still something to keep in mind.
I agree. And, there has to be a good balance between the tuition fees and the city that you live, because the extra charges also come out of your pockets as well. So I agree, 30% is like a big, big chunk that you could just get off that final amount. But I just wanted to ask, like, if we consider just your case, that you were just out of bachelor's and then you came for master's, so does it like really affect if you do have work-ex or if you don't have work-ex, like in your regards, like what do you think is the deciding factor that you could think of out of the percentage of scholarship given to different students? Like it may vary from 30 to lesser or more as well.
That's a great question. Some of my friends actually did have work experience, and their scholarship was a little bit higher. So to add to your point, yes, that is true. The scholarship goes up a little bit, in my opinion, if you have work experience. But if you have more research on your profile, or you have something else, any extracurricular activities, something which really stands out to the application team, they will consider that, and they will give you the scholarship. I wouldn't call it completely dependent on the work experience, but having work experience really helps.
It's basically like all round, they consider your academics and your extracurricular. So just correct me if I'm wrong, that when you apply for that application, obviously you pen down a lot of things in the SOP as well, and then you do have your LORs that really stand out and support your application. But do we have like certain sections where you people are actually penning down your research work or your work-ex or anything of that sort, which is also considered later in terms of merit-based scholarships?
You're right. There was a section to put in your work experience. There was a section to put in your research experience, and there's also a separate section for putting down your extracurricular activities, which is quite rare, I feel, in the master space. Of course, they give you the option of putting in your resume and everything, but having separate sections to look at, and separate sections they focus on, is really helpful and nice to have. So I took advantage of all three of those sections. And I presume they also have a specific page where you put in if you actually need aid or no. And I'm assuming everyone should just say yes right out of the box. If you need it or no, you might as well just apply for it. And if you apply for it, you will be considered for the scholarship.
I agree, because for my application as well, we did have one section where it was specifically asked, like, do you need the university to provide you financial aid? I was like, blindly, I just said yes, yes, yes. But this is one section that I think, we should promote it more as part of universities, that, to have specific, achievements and accomplishments, apart from who doesn't have a work-ex, but they have other internships or research experiences, and they can pen them down, because it's really difficult to put everything into the SOP. And at times LORs are also generally written for all of the students that we know as part of universities. It's just a generic LOR written for all of the students. It's just your name and the college just changes. So this is something really good that I heard, and I'm hearing a lot of new things as part of different universities. So a lot to really catch up. Like every university's process is so diverse, so different, and one has one thing, the other doesn't have that, but they have something else to actually go by it. So just as an example, like I was sitting with a couple of students of Georgia Tech, and we talked about the financial aid, and they said like it automatically makes their tuition fees zero if you have the TA and RA job. But similarly, living in the same city, the same college, Georgia State University, we used to get TA and RA, but there was a specific amount that used to get reduced from our tuition fees for that semester. So, two different universities in the same city, but following different, methods. And that was really like good to hear a lot about different things. But
And especially the Syracuse University application process is very inclusive and all-round based application.
mhm.
They really look into all of your merits and all of your qualities to actually make a decision. So you must have heard that there's a lot of undergrad folks getting a lot of scholarships for their sports capabilities. But Syracuse University is actually one of the universities which considers that even for graduate studies, and they give you a separate kind of scholarship for sports capabilities. So that's really unique for the university. That's that's
To be
that's
honest,
that's a great process.
I've just heard like sports quota back in India in different universities. This is something that I've heard really less for graduate studies in university, or like next to impossible. I haven't heard about it. This is like the first time I'm hearing it, that we do have those sports scholarship as well granted. But that's great. Like it gives a platform for everyone, and that's how we have more of diverse students joining. Um,
Absolutely.
but circling back again to the same question of scholarships and everything. So if, like, for example, you do get that scholarship alongside with your offer letter, right? That you get to know that, okay, this much is the reduction in your main tuition fees, and this is what
That's
is
correct.
awarded. Okay. So if you get that scholarship, is it optional for you to get that TA and RA, or you can still apply for it and get some more reduction from TA and RA positions as well?
So they do not have any restriction as such. If you have a scholarship, you can still apply for TNRA positions. So it's not a guarantee that every single student is going to get a TA or a RA position right with their application or acceptance letter. But they can definitely apply for it when they get to the university and they actually interact with the teachers and interact with the professors and see what they really need help with in terms of both grading or assistance with their teaching as well as assistance with their research and everything. But Syracuse University operates on a different structure where they do not reduce the fees, but they just give a flat out salary. But that might change in the near future with all the unionization happening on university. And I'm assuming that's a bigger trend all around the US. Unionization of these positions are really helping and adding benefits to our students. And I personally feel that's the reason why there's a difference between Georgia State and Georgia Tech as well. I think Georgia Tech has a union which pushes for all of these features and benefits.
Yeah. Okay, we're not going deep into that side. I'll still support my university, but yeah, that's one fair point.
Oh yes, absolutely. Go Orange.
Yeah. Apart from that, and also, for example, you do have a cohort of, for example, 40, 50 students, or maybe lesser as part of the classroom strength. So everyone has a different, I'm assuming, different TA or RA job under different departments, under different professors. So obviously the per time changes for every student, or it's consistent all through the university.
No, so every single student has their own understanding with the professor for the grading needs and for the research needs. But Syracuse University is actually one of the universities which also has a lot of on-campus jobs. At least they did when I joined. So the salary varied significantly for the on-campus folks, for RA folks, and for the TA folks. So the salary also changes. The number of hours you're working also changes. Of course, no one goes above 20 hours being a student, and never going above 40 hours being like on vacation. But to answer your question, yes, it changes significantly based on what job you're doing, how many hours you're doing, and everything. So there's no set of hours you need to do or they require you to do. It's up to you.
Great. That really answers the part. And before we move on to the finances section and more, discussion on that part, I just wanted to ask, like, is this course like a spring specific course, or do we have like fall intakes or any other like winter or summer intakes as well, or it's just spring intakes?
No, it's not just spring intake. It has a fall intake too, but it does not have any summer intake. So it's just spring and fall, and it's up to you. Once you get an acceptance, it's up to you if you want to join during the spring or the fall, and you can defer it up to 2 times. And it's really up to you to, decide the season you want to come into.
I Actually, I'm hearing a lot of things, like a lot of good things about the university. I was at a point really considering it, but because of the weather, I really like took a step back that I can't take that brutal side of winters. Coming from India, obviously, we haven't seen that side of the winters. And plus, I would really agree to that point that the university is a little on the expensive side. You really have to think twice, thrice before, uh, getting over there. So that's why we come to the next section of where we actually talk about the finances. I don't want to drill down much into it. Obviously,
Mhm.
ranges from person to person and course to course, but on a high level manner, if you can talk about the finances and how did you manage it, just could be an aid for others as well, that how did you do it.
Okay. So let's just start off with the fees. Fees, like I said, can change significantly based on the courses you're taking, based on how many prerequisite courses you have. Some have none, like I do not have any, but many have like one or two courses. But then what also changes is your how much scholarship you have on your program and on your acceptance. Based on that, it changes quite a bit. But on average, I would put it for a master's program in an engineering school would be around 50 to 55 to $60,000, not above that. But on the I school or the information sciences or the the management school, it might be a little bit higher than that. You can offset quite a bit in Syracuse University by doing on-campus jobs. When we were during our batch and the batch after me, we had a lot of on-campus opportunities, working in food services, working as a SOC analyst, working as an IT specialist, working RATA and the security advisors, all of that quite adds up quite a bit. So Syracuse, since I like I already mentioned, since Syracuse University is like a college town and it's a small city, the expenses are relatively low. So if you manage your expenses well, you can actually live just off your earnings on campus. That's doable, and I'm under the impression that most of my friends did that. So they lived off their earnings on campus, which is quite rare in the US.
Yeah, it's quite rare. I agree to that point. I couldn't live on the tier RA earnings that I used to get. So it's more of you need to step out of your circle, get scholarships from other, community programs or anything of that sort. Where do they give it for students as well? And yeah, but that's really amazing that you were able to have everything sort of through that earning as well. And because 20 hours is not a lot for a week, and it just flies by very easily, and when you count those hours and then the dollar amount, it just wraps up really less. So that's really great that you shared about it. And moving on the sections, where were there any sort of like you know in the terms when we talk about any sort of video interviews, any sort of interactions you had with any professors, like were you building up relationships before actually landing in the university, so that it's easier for you to pick up those TA and RA jobs? So anything that you can throw light on that you used as mediums.
So I did not work as an RA or a TA. I did work for RA position for a brief amount of time, but not on an extended period. But what I've heard from my friends is they've really reached out to professors, looked at their research, their research background beforehand, and what they're doing right now, and spoken to the current students, their PhD students as well as a master student, to really drill down and get their positions locked in even before they got here. But even the professors realize that it's difficult to do all your research sitting in India, so they really help you and they support you if you do research after coming here and actually talking to them and helping them understand what your research interests and what your skills and everything. Based on that, they really help you get the position you're looking for. But it was particularly helpful for me being in the cybersecurity program because the professor which I was really interested for has like his own course on Udemy, and he's quite an entity on social media and everything. So it was easy for me to look up his research and look at all of his work because he also does a lot of open source contributions. And based on that, it was relatively easy for me. But I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit more difficult for others, but it's still doable. Most of these professors have their research under the university's name. So it becomes relatively easy to catalog and to go through all of this research on the internet sitting in India.
That's amazing that they are reachable and you could actually talk to them about things, because like for my university you used to get the TARA thing along with the scholarship and along with this offer letter. So you know that okay, you're assigned as a TA or you're assigned as an RA, and then once you land, then your resume gets, like, there's a matchmaking between your resume
Mm-hmm.
and the professor who needs a TA or an RA, and that's how you people are coupled together for that particular semester. So but that's amazing as well. Somehow you need to put in some efforts here, because
Yeah.
that's how you actually move things around the route. But that was like really good to know about things around the scholarship, the application process, and everything of that sort. Moving to the next segment, where we actually talk about the visa process. I know that's the biggest chunk and a lot goes around it. And considering
Mm-hmm.
the fact you came in spring 2022, I really wanted to know how was your drama scenes around the visa slots, appointments, and everything of that sort. And if you could just, high level talk about in terms of timeline, like before the day you had to fly, how, like, when did you get your offer letter, like what month, and how things flew by after that time.
So my process was not a normal process. I actually deferred my master's twice. So I had my up application and my appointment and all sorted long before I was leaving for my master's. So my visa had arrived almost 2 months before my leave date, or the day I was leaving from India. So it was convenient for me, but I can tell you from experience from my roommate and from other folks, they really struggled. They actually came in 10 days after the course started. And that was especially a bad time because of COVID and because of slots not being available. Now you at least have like uh, the the US government or the embassy releasing slots in like in like phases, but at that time it was just random. There was no method to this. So getting a slot was extremely difficult at that time. There was a lot of scam also going on with these agents charging money and everything. So it was complicated for a lot of people, but touch wood, it was very very peaceful for me. No problems at all, and yeah, relatively easy for me, straightforward. I did not have much issue.
For the very first time, deferring the offer letter like was fruitful, because I came in fall of 2022, and really I cried my heart out for that one
I can understand.
appointment. And it was like, give me any embassy, like I'm not like pick and choosing, like I really wanted to go for the Delhi one,
Hmm.
because I lived in Lucknow and that was
Lucknow.
the closest. But my first option came up from Bombay. I was all set up, had my flight tickets, everything done, that I had to give it there. But somehow, due to friends' helps, I got it in Delhi. Like I was able to reschedule it for an earlier date. So I had to actually skip my onboarding, like, the first session that you have with the entire students, like the orientation. That day I missed it because I was in the flight. So yeah, that has happened with me as well, because 2022 was really, really bad for
Yeah.
appointments and everything.
I can tell you from experience, it can be nerve-wracking. My roommate actually showed up 10 days after I the university started, and I did not know if I would have a roommate or no, because he actually did his visa appointment literally one day before he came to the US, before his tickets were booked out. So it was just so nerve-wracking that I didn't know, first of all, it's a new city and it's snowing out, and I don't know if I'm gonna have a roommate, and I just had like
Oh
one
my
roommate.
God, that's like a good white welcome for you folks, because that's just the
Yeah.
start of winters. Yeah.
So it was quite nerve-wracking at that time. Not gonna lie.
But I usually wanted to ask this question to all the folks that come up on the podcast as well, like, if such situations happen. I know my university was helpful, that I was able to skip first day of the class because I was just traveling, settling up, and everything. But how was your university in all these terms, considering your roommate came 10 days late. So how supportive were they in such situations where it's not something in our hands, it's something that we're not getting the appointments through the government sites, but how was the university's aid there?
So I must say, Syracuse University is actually very helpful in these, exceptional out-of-hand cases because they were very supportive at that time. They let students come in like 2 weeks late because they knew that the situation in India was so bad and they were not getting any appointments. They were in touch with us constantly, and they expected us to respond to their messages and emails, letting them know what's happening and if we need an extension, and just keeping them updated was important. But if you actually let them know and kept them updated, they had no problems. They were ready to wait. So extremely helpful in that sense.
That's great. Like that should be the case because this is something not in our hands. And what can we do if we don't get the appointments?
That's right.
Yeah, that's fair. So coming down to the time where you actually landed, like obviously it should be January after Christmas. So how was your transition from, like, I know we've talked about it that you haven't moved out of Bangalore, like you haven't moved out from that place ever. And the first, outgoing thing happened was a different country altogether. And how was your transition process? Like, how was the first few weeks in terms of settling in? And I know a lot of culture shocks, but something that you want to talk about.
So it was an interesting transition, I must say. It was probably the first time I was seeing real snow for an extended period of time. And just, being in that jacket and being in that attire all the time, keeping yourself warm was something, so not used to because I'm from Bangalore. It's like California weather. And it's like, and coming from there to like sub 5 or -5 was really was really something different. But I was fortunate, and I'm assuming most of the international students is they have some friends here, or they are in touch with a few people who are ready to help you. So if someone has come before you, they are more than happy to help you. And I had a friend who had come to the airport and picked me up, and he just helped me like put my stuff inside my apartment and everything. So all of that was okay, but what really adds up is to get all of your stuff for your apartment. You need a lot of stuff which you need to order locally, and then make all of that available for the apartment to be livable in the US, right? So that took time. That took about 2 to 3 days, and then setting up your internet and everything is just whole list of things which you need to do. But it also puts you. It's definitely a shock, like a speed breaker, but it also puts you into the zone of being an international student very, very quickly. And I personally think it's a good thing. It gives you like the shock, but you're also into the zone very, very quickly, and you understand the ground reality, and you're not living in a bubble which you had in India. And that's something which is interesting. And then if you know how to cook, that's great. But I do not know how to cook, so I was also relying on packed food for the first month or so, and just living on Maggie and other frozen delights in the US. But yeah, once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. You think that you're not ready for this, but some way or the other, your parents and your family has prepared you for this all your life, so you get used to it.
I agree to that point. Cooking was, I don't know. I don't have any adjectives for it, but it was my worst nightmare. And I can't say it, but in every of my suitcase, I had like one layer of Maggie, like
Yeah.
one layer of Maggie spread out all across my suitcases. So, I was surviving on those breads and everything. And after like I'll complete 2 years this year, and I still can say like I can survive. Like I do know the survival trick of, cooking and everything.
Yeah.
But still, that's like a very, you know, fun joke that my family cracks it always on me, that to make her learn cooking, we had to send her this far. That she's able to
Yeah.
now cook at least for herself and for 2, 3 more people. But we had to pay such a price for her to cook that we had to send her so far. So that's basically more of things, first few weeks are like I used to just cry. Like, I would be honest
Yeah.
here, like, I had this weird thing of like looking at the airplanes in the sky and just thinking, when can I go back to India? I
Mm-hmm.
haven't done this till now, like, I haven't gone back. So, still things like, airplanes really excite me a lot, that,
Mm-hmm.
one day I'd be on one to go back home. So, everyone just paves their own path and, make their own life here. And to be honest, there is no thing as of you can actually take a break or anything of that sort here.
Yeah.
One or the other thing comes up, and cooking was the worst thing that I came across.
So, you know what's interesting? Now I've been in the US for almost 3 years now. It's going to be my third year in December, 2.5 years. Now my family is quite surprised that I can cook so much and I cook so many different cuisines and so many different items which I would never cook in India. It's just unbelievable because even my mom is not able to cook, certain dishes because they just don't cook because it's so easily available outside. But US really forces you to learn everything and really pushes you to your limits to really know how to extract information from YouTube and do something on your own.
I still follow a lot of recipes through what,
Yeah,
like,
all of us.
they all have been starred, and now it's time now that I don't refer to them, like I know it like
Hmm.
by heart. But there were times when I just look, okay, step 0 is this, step 1 is this, and then step 0 has to be kept aside. We'll continue with the other step,
Yeah,
then we'll get back to it and put everything into that. So all those things, but yeah, it took time. There were phases of everything. There were a lot of burns in the kitchen, a lot of alarms that went off, learning bit
always.
by bit. Till now as well, I'm not ashamed of it. I know how to switch it off and then make those parathas. So
Yeah.
that's there. That's the funny part of staying here. You get those breaks and nooks.
Hmm.
But how is the living plan, or like the living arrangements that you booked? Like, was it closer to the university, or if not closer, you had public commute? And how was those things set up from your end, in terms of traveling to for groceries or to university or anything of that sort?
So I had three constraints before actually looking for an apartment. First is I just wanted a two-bedroom. I just wanted one more roommate. That's again rare. People don't want that, but my constraint to finding a roommate was he should not be from my program, and I just need one more person because I knew
It
that I'll
took
be
you
interacting
a
with
lot of
cybersecurity.
time then after the deferral that you can have like the perfect match. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't want to interact with cybersecurity folks all the time because I was interacting with them in class, and then I wanted to see what's happening with someone else who is not in my program, right? And coming back to the constraints, the other two constraints which I had was I wanted the utilities to be included in my rent, and the apartment should be really close to the university. So that's a constraint for me, but it must not be for everyone else. So for my apartment, luckily I found something which was relatively close to. I think I was closest to to the university compared to all of my other friends. But all of my other friends, since this is a college town, all of my other friends do not live more than a mile away from the university. There is public transportation, and there's also transportation provided by the university. But we just walked, and we just have like those electric bikes and everything, so we just use them to like roam around and get around the campus and get to campus easily. But particularly for me, it was easy because I was the closest. So I could just walk to my university within like 10 minutes walk, which is not a lot in the US.
Not a lot just in US, because my mom is yet shocked, like I was not walking much back in India, because we have this thing like either we have two-wheeler or
Yeah,
four-wheeler. It's convenient for us to take those things, but here we happily walk, like, okay, it's a mile, oh, that's fine, we can walk up to it, like it's like
yeah,
20 minutes, it's fine, walkable distance. But people do more as well. I've seen it back in my university as well, like depending on how much you can walk. But yeah, 15 minutes is like really, really doable, and good job to you that you could search everything under your
yeah.
rules and regulation and it worked out somehow.
Yeah, I
So
would give anything for an Activa in the US, but I don't think that's possible.
but like there are like student like the majority of your classmates used to stay, like those are farther away and they're more on the sharing side, right?
Correct. So even in my apartment unit, the apartment building, they were with 3 bedroom and 4 bedroom, but I was able to find something which 2 bedroom. But it's really up to the person's, person's needs and requirements, and based on how much like interaction do you need. Both my roommate and I were fine with having just both of us constantly looking at each other's faces and interacting with each other. And of course, we had our private rooms and everything, but some people are not. Some people need like 4 people around them or 3 people around them, which is completely fine. And uh, since everything is like a mile away and they have like student housing all around the campus, so it's relatively close. And I don't think anyone lives more than a mile or even a mile and a half away from campus here, at least in Syracuse University.
Okay, that's more like a blessing to have like a private room. But two fun questions for you that I'll throw off guard. One is, did you had laundry unit inside your apartment?
That's a good question. Again, no, we did not. It was a common laundry. We
Okay.
had to actually, not even our apartment, but we had to like go to the next building's basement to get the laundry done. Again, we were at ground level, so it was not that bad. But still, in winters, carrying a laundry bag out was not fun. Let's just say that.
I loved it. I was living in sharing, but I just had to walk 2 steps across the hall and then dump all of my laundry and it's all done. So that's the best part.
So, so that was only 6 months though. Then later on, I moved to my new apartment that had like a laundry and everything. So right now, the accommodations we have right now, it's pretty sweet.
I know. But yeah, considering the fact like everything around the university, like upstate and closer to like New York, I've heard like a lot of folks, couple of my friends in NYU, they also had to move down for the laundry, like few blocks away and get it done.
Yes.
So that was something a shocker for me when I came to Atlanta and I had it in my apartment. So I was like, okay, Atlanta is still much better on those
Yeah.
fronts that it has it. But the second fun question is like considering your constraints and then the apartment and everything, did you had like a balcony as well that came up with the apartment, or it was just a 2 bed 2 bath?
No, it is just a 2 bedroom apartment. You will not find a lot of balcony in upstate because it snows so heavily, and the snow just accumulates in the balcony and gets really heavy and everything. So the, having a balcony is actually quite rare in upstate. But not that they don't have it, it's just that it's not that common. So I do not have any balcony.
I agree, and that's fair as well. Rather, it's like an added job to actually clean that up as well. To That's best that you don't have it.
Yeah.
But those are a couple of questions that I usually put out somewhere in the middle just for a refresher. But coming back to we know we've discussed about the application, we've discussed about what were the factors that led you to choose this course, and then the visa process, more on the transition side. Cut to chase, I really wanted to ask about the job market, and I know you're working right now, and that's really great. But I really wanted to understand how was it for you to search for that job, and was there any sort of aid that was provided by the university, or it was just you who you like what you want to talk about those job scenarios? I know because these are really thin times where the market is not that good.
Yeah, considering the environment, my process was relatively easy on me to get the job and get internships and everything. But just to give you an idea about what is the support from the university did have career services and they did have like job fairs. Job fair was not particularly helpful for me, but the career services was always assisting us with building a resume, building a profile, and adding stuff and fixing all of that. All of that was helpful. It was provided by the university, free of cost. They don't charge you or anything for that, and it was helpful. But what I would really want to say is it what really matters is what you do and how much work and effort you put in. So it really comes down to the person itself, to how much networking you're doing and how much research you're doing on the companies, what's your profile, what's your background, projects, and everything. So my internship search was long but lengthy, but also apt for the time. So if you see the timing and the timeline for a spring student, by the time the job market opens, you're already in the US for like 7 to 8 months. That gives you a good amount of time to get used to the environment, see what's happening, fix your LinkedIn, fix your resume, put in all the details, have everything ready for the job market to open up in September, October, and everything. So that's an advantage, I would say, also for spring students over the fall students. But of course, there are demerits for coming in spring, which we can get into later. Uh, I took advantage of that quite a bit, and I had certifications being in cybersecurity. I had certifications in India, and I got another two certifications when I got to the US during my first summer here. And by the time the job market opened, I was ready with my profile, with my LinkedIn, with my connections, with my resume and everything which goes around it, right? With my GitHub and everything. So I took advantage of that and I applied. I actually started applying in August. So I applied for the positions for next summer in August. So people are actually quite surprised when they hear about this, but this is, I think, common practice now. And because I started applying that quickly, I actually started locking in interview positions and interviews for these positions very, very quickly. I remember my first interview was in September, and I kept interviewing till like late, I think May, and internships start during June, right? And June of 2023. And I was even interviewing till like May 2023, even though my internship was locked down and I had finalized much earlier than that, but I still wanted to get my experience. And I actually even applied for full-time positions and to see if I could finish my master's in 1.5 years. But I did not do that. I focused on my internship and I got multiple offers going off from September itself. And what really helped me was just having everything ready at time and being able to apply that quickly was really helpful. And in one of the job fairs, actually, a coincidence for me was one of the person there was from Syracuse University, and he was into cybersecurity. So just interacting with him and talking with him was very helpful, and I was able to lock down that internship. So I can tell for sure that alumni do help.
I agree to that point, and I agree to the point as well that job fairs are not that helpful. They did not help me much as well, which the university organizes, and wherever you go, it's really rare that I hear that any career fair has helped anyone get a job and it's all done
Mhm.
and dusted. So that is something that I would say I agree with your point. But starting really early was really good as well. And since you mentioned that you had couple of perks being part of the spring intake, but do you want to talk about couple of like downfalls of being part of the spring intake, did it like affect your job search or anything of that sort?
So it did not affect my job search, but I've heard horror stories from my friends, which are not good to have. So the demerit I would say for coming in spring is the fact that your class size is relatively smaller compared to the fall session. So if you just say take the example of Syracuse University, my spring session, my class was only 5 students. But on the other hand, yeah, quite surprising. I know. It was just 5 students, but the fall batch which came later, like one semester after me, was about 30 students. So that really, puts you at a loss maybe for some people that you do not have enough people to go around and ask your doubts and clear your doubts and get clarifications because you're new to the environment. You have so many questions and everything. That's one. And another the last two are the more important ones, but the second one, which is important, is if you're coming in fall, you have an option of getting the 0th attempt for H1B, which is not an option for you for while coming in spring, because the as you must know that the H1B session is starts from March and ends within like 20 days. So it really boils down to you getting a job within a month and convincing them that they are good enough and being able to like file H1B within the whole like 2 month period, which is super difficult and super tight. But if you see for fall students, it becomes relatively easy because you're doing an internship. That internship is probably going to get converted as a job offer, and they have enough time to do all the paperwork and get all of you done. And just having that one single extra attempt in H1B really makes the difference for a lot of folks. And if you see the probability, do the math, and with every single attempt, your probability increases significantly of you getting picked, right? So losing that one chance is really a huge problem. And say, for example, worst case, you're stuck in the bad job market, you don't have a job, you completely miss the first chance, right? Which is the worst situation to be at. But on the other hand, for fall people, even if you do not have a job within like first 2 months of you being done with the university, you still have about 6 to 7 months to still find a job and convince them to give you an H1B and everything. So those are the three major demerits I would say for coming in spring. And that's
All
about it
fair.
for this.
Yeah, they're all fair. They like do not affect you instantly, but in the long run, like for the H1B and the job market specifically, it really hampers your 1 year. And zeroth attempt is more of like an extra chance you get, like apart from the three trials. So that's one thing. And then I was really shocked to see like here the count number for the spring intake, it was just 5. It's like barely anyone in the class. You don't get that opportunity of at least having that in-person discussion. And uh, a lot of other demerits are like sitting down working on something, you just have 4 other people to only talk to and there's no one. So that's really less, I would say, in terms of spring batch. But do you want to talk about your current role with the current organizations, and how is your degree and the curriculum, everything aligns with that process? If you want to talk about it.
Sure. I'll first talk about how I got into this company and how I've been working with them, and then later I'll get into specifics of how my work related with my studies and everything. So I accepted with all the offers I had. I finally accepted Lumen Technologies for my internship during the summer of 2023. So I interned with them from June till the end of, I think, the mid of August. And from the mid of August, I got converted for a co-op opportunity, and I took the co-op opportunity with them as well. And that was because my project was all finalized and everything. I really liked the team and all the support Lumen was giving me. And right after the co-op, uh, I was actually getting converted to full time as well. So I've been with the company for about a year now, and I never stopped working since I started in June. So I started with June, finished my internship, then started with my co-op, and then started off with my full-time right away. There was a gap in between because of the whole EAD process, which takes forever. But other than that, it was I've been working with Lumen for over a year now, and I do write software for the security teams. So Lumen has a lot of products. A big chunk of their product involves security, and I was writing, or I do write software and focus on software for the security side of things, which really entails and has like mix of both. So you're doing a lot of cybersecurity, using a cybersecurity knowledge with software skills and everything. So to answer your question on how my studies actually helped my job process, it really did help. So if you remember, I mentioned this course called computer security I did in my university. That was really helpful for me. And having an additional and extension to that was the internet security course. Even that was quite helpful. It really, solidifies all of your concepts, which we learn in the pen testing side of things and blue team side of things, and see at the core, what technologies are being used and how does that affecting your, decision making steps while being or while solving any problem at your job. But another interesting point I would like to mention is every single student, or even me for that matter, are always focusing on the most cutting edge technology while you're in university, right? Cutting edge research, cutting edge like tools and frameworks and everything. But that actually does not correlate well with job in the job market, because even though the companies are in between of like being cutting edge and being like not as outdated as your studies, but there's still quite a bit of gap between the tools they are using from the cutting edge. And that's something which is quite important to keep in mind before just jumping into the most cutting edge technologies, because you're most likely not going to be using that in your job. So having projects on something which is maybe a season old, I don't know if that's a way to put it, but if you focus on something which is like foundational and core and has like basics, is really going to make the difference over doing the the cutting edge and the most advanced stuff. So that's something which I kept in mind as well. I did of course work with machine learning and AI and large language models and everything before I actually joined my job, but I focused on the fundamentals.
That's really great, and that's one thing that I've seen everyone talk about, like getting your fundamentals perfect, because you don't know, like as you mentioned, that a lot of different tools have come up into the market, and you don't know what your organization is using, or either obviously they hold the same functionalities, but at times your organization has an in-house technology or tool as well that's being uh, employed, and you need to learn onto that, and there's no like you can't speak much about it outside of the organization, but there's a lot of learning. But it depends like how organizations have matured themselves in terms of technologies, and what is your contribution in that. And I understand that point, that the degree program really gives you the theoretical side of things, like to understand the fundamentals, and you are actually viewing it as if this has happened hypothetically, doing analysis, security postures and everything. But when you come down in the real world, it's absolutely like a beast, and it's really different. So I work at the audit assurance and controls, and I've had
Interesting.
like one subject that was related to more on the audit side, and our professor really uh, pushed us to give that CISA exam, and be an auditor and this and that and everything. And that time I never like dreamt of like I would be moving into this section. So things are really different. What you have learned theoretically, okay, we know there is PCI DSS, you have to be compliant. But when you come into the real world, and when you see non-compliance, when you see risk turning up, it's really different. And that theory really helps you to actually summarize things. And there was like a moment of like deja vu, when I used to just say, okay, I have heard like risk transfer, I've heard like risk acceptance, but we're doing it actually. And these are some real life examples where we're actually using those things. So the degree program really comes handy with all those subjects, the professors
Absolutely.
taught you and everything. And couple of notes I still refer to in my head. Okay, these are things which are like priceless, to actually have written all those things by really good professors when you were getting taught those things. So
Right. And being in the master's program, you do not see the gravity of things and decisions which you make. But when you actually get to the work environment, you see that your decisions and your thought process really has an impact on the organization, and it really puts the gravity into all of the decisions you make. And so whatever you've learned from your theoretical aspect really starts making much more sense, because just an added extra step can really make the difference of between breaking and making a thing. So it really adds up.
and to that point as well, that it, the meaning of it, an example of it, but now you have to apply it. Like that's the difficult part, that you have known everything about that terminology, now you have to apply it. And you have to
Right.
use your common sense and all those processes that you have existing in the organization, and fine tune it and use it in a way that there's no risk involved. So that's the major thing, that we put up for 8 hours a day and get paid for it. So thankfully that dollar program is actually helping us. Whatever dollars we paid for it, things are actually working in our favor. So all good, I'm good with this answer. um but moving ahead, the fun section, where I really wanted to talk, like I wanted to give you this platform to talk a little about think robotics, and specifically from the point of view, because you were a student for 2 years, and obviously India and US are like flipped time zones. So I just wanted to understand, as an international student, and then there were a lot of things on your plate, and then being like wearing a hat of the entrepreneur as well, how were things for you, and how did you manage it? And obviously we wanted to know about the organization as well, because why not, like, let the viewers know about it, and if they can be part and parcel of it as well.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. But Think Robotics, let's do an intro of what Think Robotics does. So Think Robotics is a marketplace for electronics and robotics components in the Asian market. We are going international very soon. But we do like electronics, robotics, mechanical components, and all of the other stuff, everything which goes around it to really help engineers build products which are at the cutting edge and not available in India. So we also do a lot of rapid prototyping. So that includes like 3D printing and laser cutting and water jet cutting. And we plan to start PCB manufacturing soon if everything goes according to plan. But it has been it has been an interesting journey. So this started off with me not being able to find parts in India, and me having a friend in the US who could get those parts from the US to India, right? So and if you know that the customs is not the sweetest bunch of folks to get electronics to
We'll
India.
not get into that side because I've lost a lot of products in custom, like while being here, ordering a lot of stuff from India, and then things really get outside the boxes. So that would be a very rageful discussion. So let's skip from that custom thing. Yeah.
Right. So just the electronics thing was not easy, and we started experiencing that this is not easy for a lot of companies as well in India, and that's why Think Robotics was born in 2019, where we made all of these parts available in India, and there was not a lot of folks available in the market as well to deal in these components. And since I personally saw and my co-founder saw there's a lot of market boom happening in terms of like robotics, drones, and AI, and IoT in general in India. So this was a good opportunity for us, and we took it. And we founded Think Robotics in 2019. So I was actually working on Think Robotics while I was in my undergrad program as well. So I've been managing my education, like a primary education with a background thing for quite some time now. That experience really helped me doing and working with my team back in India, living in the US. So it was definitely not easy being a full-time student, working as a SOC analyst on campus, plus doing Think Robotics, and on top of that, cooking and cleaning and doing everything. But you really get used to it if you just put your mind to it. And what I used to do is basically have like the whole daytime when it is night in India for everything related to my master's and related to my job on campus and everything else, right? But during like early mornings and late evenings, I used to interact with my team in India. So kudos actually goes to my team in India as well. They've been really patient with me to wait for my responses, wait for my tantrums every day in the morning and the evening, and working odd hours even for them. So I had a lot of support from my team back in India, my co-founder, as well as my family. My family also has been very helpful. So managing all of this was definitely daunting at times, and especially my second semester was not easy with all the course load, my professors grilling me, and everything which is happening with the internship and everything. But you really get used to it, and I'm not the only one. I actually know a couple of folks who are doing this, and all of them are excelling.
I agree, and it's really commendable for you, like handling a lot of stuff. So I really want to congratulate you for that. And
Thank
I
you.
know, hearing about the organization, few things really just went off my head, but that's fine. Like, understanding the requirements and everything is really great. And then because you started up this at a really early stage, like in 2019, so you had that flavor of
Yeah.
working and studying together. But I know things really get on south side here when you come here, and there are a lot of things which may not make sense to people back in India. Like if you say I have this, so a couple of things are like really like okay, it just takes some time. But uh, the idea of just to decide what to cook tonight is also a task for us. So
Skills.
yeah, so it's more of on that end. And then obviously, like we mentioned, like the time zones we run, like if you are at the Eastern time zone, you run like 11 hours behind.
That's right.
And that's really a difficult thing. And having that support system from India and your family, that's really great. So it was really good to hear about it. I'll drill down more about Think Robotics and I'll talk to you about it. And obviously, to everyone watching right now, we'll have Gaurav's LinkedIn and all other resources in the description so you can connect with him and talk more about the organization and everything that he has on board. So that's really great. Like, thanks for sharing it on ITSP magazine about the
Absolutely.
organization. So we're just at the end, and it was really a fun session that we had lots and lots to talk about, and hopefully it helps a lot of folks as well. And as you said, the alumni is really helpful. So being part of that group, we are as well helpful on those ends. So just one last thing to all the incoming international students, any piece of advice or pieces of advices that you want to give out to people coming to the university or in general to US, anything that you have learned and you want to share about it?
Yeah, so I have a couple of points which I tell everyone, even other folks who plan to come in at Syracuse University, is first of all, it's not a joke. If you're coming to the US, it's not a joke to like just come to the US without knowing anything and without preparing yourself. Uh, I'm sure even you must have known, and it has happened here at Syracuse University, that many folks actually go back to India because it's been so difficult. And even though it's difficult, it's really worth the hard work, I would say. And if you're up for it, and if you're prepared your mind for it, it's really definitely worth it. But just be prepared. It's not a joke. Be prepared to do, like, all the hardships of doing your own laundry, cleaning your own house, and cleaning your own utensils, and cooking and everything. That really adds up. And in addition to that, please take your education seriously. It's not a joke. I see a lot of people like just having fun and play around. If that's your motive, please do so. You're happy to be, you're free to do so. No one's there to stop you. But if you're the one who's more studious and who wants to focus on your career, please find a group which is inclined in the same way, because it's really easy to go off track in the US because there's no one monitoring you, and there's no one, actually focusing on what you're doing, because you're all up on your own. So just having that the right folks around you, and having being able to, like, have the right roommate, having all the support which you need from them, is really makes the difference, is like the make or break point. But just having education focus is extremely important. That I feel that if you focus on your curriculum, that's like just 25% of your work of getting or building a good career in the US. But that 25% really adds up. It really does just push your limits and sets you apart from other folks. But also, in addition to that, is just doing your coursework is not enough. So this, nothing is always enough in the US. You have to keep pushing yourself. You have to do certifications. You have to write your own code, do open source contributions, like contribute with the RAs and TAs and everything, and building a network on top of that. So a combination of all of that really does add up, and it will really help you excel in the US. But it's just that constant rush for the first 3 years, and then you're sorted. You're really sorted. So just stay strong for the first 3 years, and then you're all good.
I agree to that point, and every day is a challenge here. Like, be it now as well that we've spent some time here, but still every day is something we learn. And it's not a joke that we call America as the country of opportunities and everything. It's there, and probably it really does makes a stand. It's really worth it to have that degree and everything, because we being now working and paying off those prices is like really worth it. But yeah, you really have to come to that point, and there would be a lot of obstacles and challenges that we really talked about, and every day is a challenge, be it just walking just 2 blocks to get your groceries or anything of that sort in snow. So that's also one challenge. So thank you so much for that advice. And I know that was something really beautiful for you to come up, talk about those advices, and obviously about your life back in the university, and then how things really paved for you, and then now working. Uh, here and then obviously handling things back in India as well. And I hope all the best for you, for both of the organizations, and we'd stay connected. And obviously, everyone, we'd have all his links in the description box. So you may spam him a lot, and that would be the best thing ever. So thank you so much, Gaurav, again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Saman. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm sure people will really go through all of your videos and take inspiration from that, and prepare themselves well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Off the Record, a student abroad podcast with Saman Fatima, part of the ITSP Magazine podcast network. If you learned something new and this conversation made you think, then add this show to your favorite podcast player, subscribe to the ITSP Magazine YouTube channel, and share the ITSP Magazine podcast network with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to connect your brand to our conversations and our audience, visit itspmagazine.com to learn how to sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey.